Jeff is a champion cyclist with a knee injury who seems to have found his dream job. All he has to do all day is pedal on the exercise bike. But where will his bike path lead him this time? And will he be able to get out of the strange office? First day at work. Bruce takes the new guy into his new office with only one bicycle, a couple of lights on the walls, and two lights, red and green. Bruce explains his assignment to Jeff. As soon as the green light on the wall comes on, he has to pedal until the red light comes on, and only then does they let the guy take a break. The cyclist has two cardinal rules in his job. First, no electronics, smartphones, or cameras. The second rule is no questions asked. After these words of Bruce, Jeff gets nervous. It seems to him that they do not understand who he is, since they are unwilling to explain everything in detail. But his partner assures the guy that they know exactly everything about him, only it does not mean that he will get special terms. Bruce tries to reassure his colleague, promising that he will enjoy the job because now they can be on the same team again, but if he still has doubts, he should leave right now. There will be no second chance to leave the job. Despite his doubts, Jeff refuses, promising to leave after he recovers his injured knee and can return to the sport. In the locker room, Jeff notices pictures of his new teammates on Bruce's locker, but the guy closes the pictures without explaining anything to his friend. After changing his clothes, Jeff gets down to business. Despite much experience, he tires quickly, but the green light continues to shine. Finally, the light changes color and Jeff lets go of the pedals. The sore knee makes itself felt and the guy falls to the floor looking around. His hand reaches for the wires on the wall that lead to the bike. But at that moment, Bruce enters the room and invites the champ out. The guys are resting in the locker room, and Bruce tells his buddy that he's been doing the odd cycling thing for 4 years. Getting $150 an hour, he's been able to provide his family with a nice house, and he's not about to give it up. Jeff decides to keep going, and he goes back to the bike. The whole day goes the same way. He pedals, and during the break, he and Bruce get together in the locker room and talk about nothing. On one such break, Jeff asks his friend about the wires, but the guy reminds him of the second rule and points to a camera through which they are watching the workers. The athlete finds all this strange, but he returns to the office and continues to do his job. Curiosity doesn't leave the guy. On another break, he sits against the wall and looking at the door, he touches the wires. Trying to figure out where they're going, the guy listens. And from behind the wall, he can hear the sounds of music. Bruce tells his buddy that he had a birthday the day before, which coincides with his son's birthday. He says this sadly, admitting that the boy is being raised by his mother, and they hardly ever see each other. A strange job consumes Jeff. He pedals around, listening to the wall during breaks, and once in the locker room, the guy constantly stares at the camera, wondering who is behind it all. But after a while, his nerves begin to give up, and at one point, freaking out, he hits the wall with his fist, discovering that it is made of brittle material. Bruce notices a tattoo on the arm of a guy named Bree, and one day he decides to ask him who it is. Jeff admits that it's not one of his girlfriends, but he doesn't want to say anymore, not considering Bruce to be his close friend. Jeff has a breakdown and demands that his friend explain to him what and why they are here. He doesn't want to hear any more about the rules, accusing his buddy of inviting him to a horrible place. To hurt his friend more, Jeff calls him a loser and reminds him of his son, who wants nothing to do with him. He says he'll find out the truth because he's a champion, which means he has a right to know why he's spinning those weird pedals. Bruce turns to his buddy and says he screwed up. They're both losers since they ended up here instead of competing. The man who hired them could just as easily destroy the guys. And if Jeff wants to save himself, he just needs to stop asking questions and keep pedaling. While Jeff goes back to work, Bruce picks up the shards from the bottle he broke in anger. Despite his friend's advice, Jeff can't get a grip. His sore knee is making him suffer. He returns to the locker room and apologizes to his buddy for his breakdown. But when Bruce closes his locker, Jeff sees his friend's entire face is covered with bruises and cuts. The next day, Jeff brings a hammer with him to work, and Bruce notices his buddy hiding it behind his sinus, but he doesn't turn his friend in and pretends he didn't see anything. Noticing this, Jeff decides to be frank and tells his friend about Bree, whom he left after she got in his way. Without discussing anything else, Jeff returns to the room, but instead of pedaling, the guy hits the wall with a hammer, punching it through with the first blow. The light in the office changes to red, but that doesn't stop Jeff, and he continues to smash through the wall. After punching through enough to get a peek inside, the guy sees a horrifying picture. The wires from the bicycle are reaching out to an old man sitting in a chair in the middle of the rich living room. Bruce enters the room. After looking at his buddy, he silently sits on the bike and starts pedaling. At that moment, Jeff sees the old man come to life and start the music record. An armed squad rushes into the room, and taking Jeff in their sights, they order him to put the hammer down. Realizing that only he can free his friend, the guy hits the wires a second before they open fire on him. Bruce leaves the bike for a few seconds to say goodbye to his friend, after which he goes back to work, unaware that it won't help the old man anymore.